The communication hub on Thessia Prime was dying. Ambassador Thelaquin watched the holographic display with her 4 eyes, each one tracking a different disaster. 12 worlds had gone silent in the past month. 12 civilizations erased like dust in the wind. The Velkari Empire had come without warning. Their ships had appeared at the edge of known space, dark and angular like shards of broken night. They had sent one message to the galactic community: submit or perish. When the community's council had voted to resist, the Velkari had begun their work with terrifying efficiency. Thelaquin's feathers rippled with stress as another distress signal cut off mid-transmission. That was Helios Station. 5 million souls lived there. Had lived there. She forced herself to remain calm. As the senior communications officer, panic was a luxury she could not afford. Ambassador, the Defense Fleet reports Velkari forces entering the outer system, her assistant said. His voice trembled despite his best efforts. They estimate we have 48 hours before they reach Thessia Prime. 48 hours. Thelaquin looked around the hub. Hundreds of species worked here, trying desperately to coordinate what remained of the community's forces. But everyone knew the truth. The Velkari were simply too strong. Their weapons cut through shields like they were not there. Their ships moved faster than anything the community had ever built, and their soldiers showed no mercy. She made her decision then. There was one option left, one desperate gamble that the Council had forbidden. The ancient protocols spoke of it. When all hope is lost, send the call into the darkness. Seek help from the unknown. Thelaquin moved to her private terminal and entered her command codes. Deep in the facility's core, old systems began to wake up. These were machines from the community's founding, designed to send signals across unimaginable distances. They had never been used because the power required could light an entire city for a year. She crafted the message carefully. It contained everything: the history of the galactic community, the nature of the Velkari threat, the genocide happening across the stars. She included cultural data, scientific knowledge, and most importantly, a plea. Any species that receives this message, we are dying. We are being exterminated. If you have any compassion, please help us. The message would broadcast in all directions, using every frequency known to science and some that were only theoretical. It would reach into unexplored space, into the forbidden zones that the community had marked as too dangerous to visit. May the stars have mercy on us, Thelaquin whispered as she activated the transmission. The signal burst outward at speeds, faster than light, spreading across the galaxy like ripples on water. It passed through nebulas and around black holes. It traveled for days, then weeks, pushing into regions where no community ship had ever ventured. 63 days after transmission, the signal reached a yellow star system in what the community had designated as Sector 001. The system contained a Class 12 death world orbiting in the habitable zone. Sensors had long ago marked this world as impossibly hostile. Gravity was 30% higher than standard. The atmosphere was 21% oxygen, a dangerously reactive concentration. The weather patterns were chaotic and violent. Tectonic activity was extreme. The native life forms were aggressive apex predators. No sane species could have evolved there. The computers had flagged it as a curiosity and nothing more. But on that world, in a facility buried deep in the mountains of what the locals called Colorado, Dr. Miklos Petrov was working the night shift at the SETI listening station. He had spent 20 years searching for signals from space. His colleagues had retired or moved on to more promising careers. Miklos remained because he believed. He believed that somewhere out there someone was trying to talk. When his computer began screaming alerts, he nearly fell out of his chair. The signal was enormous, complex, and definitely artificial. His hands shook as he began the decoding process. The computer identified linguistic patterns, mathematical constants, even visual data. As the translation algorithms worked through the night, Miklos watched in growing horror. He saw images of burning cities. He read accounts of entire populations murdered. He listened to the last words of beings dying on worlds light years away. And then he heard the plea, the desperate call for help from species facing extinction. By dawn, Miklos had contacted every relevant authority he could reach. By noon, the information was in front of the United Nations Security Council. By evening, every major government on Earth was in emergency session. The debate was fierce. Humanity had just barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Their ships were crude compared to what the message described. They had never met another intelligent species. They had no idea what they would be getting into. "We are not ready for this," the Chinese ambassador argued. "We have 12 functioning FTL ships. 12. Against an empire that has destroyed hundreds of worlds. We cannot ignore this," the American president responded. "We are listening to a genocide happening in real time. If we do nothing, what does that make us?" "It makes us survivors," someone else said. "We stay hidden. We stay safe. We do not fly into someone else's war." The African Union representative stood up. "My ancestors were stolen from their homes. They were enslaved, murdered, erased. And for centuries, much of the world did nothing. I will not let humanity be the species that hears cries for help and does nothing. We must respond." The vote was close. 37 nations voted to send aid. 31 voted to remain hidden. 8 abstained. But the majority carried, and humanity prepared for its first interstellar war. Admiral Chen Wei was chosen to command the fleet. She was a veteran of the Pacific Defense Force, known for her tactical brilliance and steady nerves. When they told her that she would be leading humanity's response to an alien genocide, she had asked only one question: "When do we leave?" Earth's 12 FTL ships were retrofitted for combat. They loaded nuclear missiles, railguns, laser batteries, and kinetic impactors. They filled their holds with marines, medical supplies, and enough ammunition to fight a prolonged campaign. Every ship carried a copy of humanity's cultural database, just in case none of them came home. Dr. Petrov sent a response to the original signal. It was simple and direct. "We received your message. Help is coming, hold on." 63 days later, as Thessia Prime burned under Valkyrie bombardment, that response reached Ambassador Theliquin's terminal. She stared at it with all 4 eyes, unable to believe what she was reading. Someone had answered. Someone was coming. But who? The message's origin point was from Sector 001, the Deathworld sector. What kind of species could survive there? What kind of beings were desperate or crazy enough to respond to a distress call from across the galaxy? Theliquin did not have long to wonder. 3 days later, the sensors detected new FTL signatures at the edge of the system. 12 ships, small by galactic community standards, but moving with purpose and speed. The Valkyrie fleet moved to intercept, confident in their superiority. And then the newcomers broadcast their message across all frequencies. It was in heavily accented but understandable galactic standard. "This is Admiral Chen Wei of the United Earth Coalition. We received your SOS. We are here to help." The battle of Thessia was about to begin, and the Valkyrie Empire had no idea what was coming for them. High Executor Zarthun watched the sensor readings with cold interest. 12 ships had emerged from faster-than-light travel at the system's edge. They were primitive things, ugly and asymmetric, clearly built by a species that had only recently discovered FTL technology. "This would be amusing. Identity scan," he commanded from his throne on the bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought Endless Night. His science officer worked quickly, pulling data from the ship's electromagnetic signatures and comparing them to the Valkyrie's extensive database. What came back made the officer pause. "High Executor, the biological scans are concerning. The beings aboard those ships originated from a Class 12 death world. Gravity 0.98 standard, oxygen concentration 21%. Extreme weather variations. The planet shows signs of recent nuclear warfare among the native population." Zarthun leaned forward. Class 12 death worlds were supposed to be sterile. Nothing intelligent could evolve in such hellish conditions. "Are you certain?" "Yes, High Executor. They call themselves humans, and they are responding to the distress call sent by the galactic community." "Then they are fools," Zarthun said. "Send 3 battle groups to destroy them." Let us show these Deathworlders what real power looks like. The Velkari ships moved with practiced efficiency. 30 warships, each one larger than the human vessels, accelerated toward the newcomers, their weapons charged, ready to tear apart the primitive fleet. On the bridge of the ECS Indomitable, Admiral Chen Wei watched the approaching enemy with calm eyes. She had spent the 63-day journey studying every piece of data they had on the Velkari. She knew their tactics, she knew their weapons, and she knew that they expected an easy victory. All ships begin evasive pattern Delta 7. Weapons free. Remember your training, she said into the command channel. Her voice was steady, showing none of the fear that tried to crawl up her spine. Humanity's first battle with an alien species was about to begin. The Velkari fired first, as expected. Their energy weapons were devastatingly powerful, designed to overwhelm shields and boil ships from the inside. But the human vessels did not rely on shields. They relied on movement. The 12 Earth ships scattered in all directions, their fusion engines burning hard. The Velkari beams missed, striking empty space where the humans had been milliseconds before. Before the Velkari could adjust, the humans fired back. Nuclear missiles streaked through space, followed by railgun slugs traveling at significant fractions of light speed. The Velkari point defenses intercepted most of them, but not all. 3 missiles found their targets, and nuclear fire bloomed in the darkness. 2 Velkari ships died instantly. A third was crippled, venting atmosphere and bodies into the void. Zarthun stood up from his throne. That was not supposed to happen. These primitives should have been obliterated in the first exchange. All ships, full assault. Destroy them now? But the humans were not fighting the way the Velkari expected. They used asteroids for cover. They fired from unexpected angles. Their computers hacked into Velkari systems, introducing chaos and confusion. And when they took damage, they kept fighting with a ferocity that shocked the Velkari commanders. The ECS Defiant took a direct hit that would have destroyed any other ship. The energy beam punched through the hull, killing 43 crew members instantly. But the ship did not break apart. Its captain, a woman named Sandra Torres, sealed the damaged sections and kept fighting. She brought her ship alongside a Velkari cruiser and fired every weapon she had at point-blank range. The Velkari ship exploded. The Defiant, trailing fire and debris, limped back toward the rest of the fleet. They are insane, a Velkari commander reported to Zarthun. They should have retreated. They should have surrendered. But they just keep coming. The battle raged for 6 hours. By the end, 8 Velkari ships had been destroyed and 11 more were damaged. The humans had lost 2 ships and suffered heavy damage to 4 others. But they had accomplished their goal. They had broken through to Thessia Prime. Ambassador Theliquin stood on the observation deck of the Central Command Station, watching human shuttles descend through the atmosphere. They were bringing supplies, weapons, and most importantly, soldiers to help defend the planet. The first human she met in person was Sergeant Anna Okoye. The woman was tall by Avarian standards, with dark skin and eyes that seemed to see everything. She carried a weapon that looked brutal and efficient, and she moved with the confidence of a predator. Ambassador Theliquin, Sergeant Okoye asked, her translator device converting the words into Galactic Standard. Yes, Theliquin said, her feathers fluttering with nervous energy. Thank you for coming. I cannot believe you actually came. Okoye smiled, and it was a strange expression, showing teeth in a way that could be interpreted as threat or friendship. We received your call. We do not abandon people who need help. She looked around at the damaged city, the frightened civilians, the burning buildings in the distance. Tell me what you need. Over the next few days, the humans worked tirelessly. They set up defensive positions using tactics that seemed impossibly aggressive to the community's military advisors. They trained local forces in guerrilla warfare, teaching them to fight in ways that the Velkari would not expect. And they treated the wounded with a gentleness that seemed at odds with their ferocity in battle. Theliquin watched Sergeant Okoye rescue a group of Avarian children trapped in a collapsed building. The human woman had lifted rubble that should have required machinery, her Deathworld muscles straining but succeeding. She had carried the children to safety one by one, speaking softly to them in broken Avarian, promising them that everything would be okay. What kind of species are you? Theliquin asked quietly. Dr. Petrov, who had come with the fleet as a translator and cultural liaison, overheard the question. We are survivors, Ambassador. Our world tried to kill us for millions of years. We had to become strong to live. But we also had to become compassionate to build societies. We are both the shield and the sword. High Executor Zarthun retreated to his core territories, fury burning in his mind. The humans had humiliated him. These primitives from nowhere had beaten back his forces and saved Thessia Prime. It was unacceptable. He called his military council together. I want every piece of information we have on these humans. I want to know their weaknesses. I want to know how to break them. The data came back over the following weeks, and it was disturbing. Humans had evolved in a world so hostile that merely surviving there had made them formidable. They could endure injuries that would kill most species. They could adapt to almost any environment. They had persistence that bordered on the supernatural, and they had a history of warfare that stretched back to the dawn of their civilization. But they also had weaknesses. They were emotional. They cared about each other in ways that could be exploited. And their technology, while clever, was still generations behind Velkari capabilities. We will destroy their homeworld, Zarthun decided. We will show them that helping the community was a mistake. We will make Earth burn, and we will broadcast it to the galaxy as a warning. But first he needed to buy time. He needed to build his superweapon and prepare his forces. So he pulled back, consolidating his holdings, and began the construction of something terrible. Admiral Chen Wei watched the Velkari retreat and knew it was not over. This was just the beginning. She sent a message back to Earth. First contact successful. First battle won. But this war is far from finished. Send everything you have. We are going to need it. 6 months had passed since the first battle at Thessia Prime, and the war had spread across dozens of star systems. The humans called it the Liberation Campaign. The Velkari called it an infestation. The galactic community called it hope. Sergeant Anna Okoye crouched in the ruins of what had once been a beautiful city on Praxis VII. The Velkari had occupied this world for 2 years, enslaving the population and stripping the planet of resources. Now Okoye and her mixed team of human marines and Avarian resistance fighters were here to take it back. Contact. 200 meters, northeast corridor, whispered Private Chen through the communication link. He was only 19 years old, fresh from Earth, and already he had seen more combat than most soldiers saw in a lifetime. Okoye hand-signaled the team to spread out. They moved like shadows through the broken buildings, using techniques that had been refined in the streets of Mogadishu, Baghdad, and Kiev over centuries of human warfare. The Velkari guards never saw them coming. The fight was over in seconds, silent and brutal. Okoye's team had learned that the Velkari were not prepared for close combat. They relied on their superior weapons and armor. When humans closed the distance using knives and bare hands when necessary, the Velkari discovered that their armor meant nothing against Deathworlders' strength and ferocity. Civilians are in the basement, reported Theron, an Avarian scout who had joined the human forces. 67 of them. Mostly children and elderly, Okoye nodded. Get them to the extraction point. We blow the garrison in 15 minutes. The liberation of Praxis 7 took 3 weeks. The humans taught the resistance fighters how to make improvised explosives from common materials. They showed them how to ambush patrols and disappear before reinforcements arrived. They demonstrated that even against a technologically superior enemy, determination and clever tactics could win. But the Velkari were learning too. They began using biological weapons, nerve agents designed to target oxygen-breathing species. When they deployed it against a human forward base on Kepler 442b, they expected to find only corpses. Instead, they found Staff Sergeant Marcus Johnson and his platoon, alive and angry. The humans had adapted their portable environment suits, filtering the toxins. Their medical nanites, designed to fight Earth's countless diseases and venoms, had counteracted the remaining exposure. And when the Velkari soldiers came to inspect the base, Johnson and his Marines had been waiting. High Executor Zarthun received the report with disbelief. How is this possible? That nerve agent is lethal to all known carbon-based life. These humans evolved in an environment saturated with toxins, radiation, and disease, his science advisor explained. Their immune systems are extraordinarily robust. Their medical technology, while primitive in some ways, is specifically designed to counter biological threats. We cannot poison them effectively. Zarthun destroyed the console in front of him with a sweep of his arm. Then we will destroy them with fire. Implement scorched earth protocols. Any world we cannot hold, we destroy. Let them inherit ashes. The Velkari began destroying entire worlds rather than allowing them to be liberated. They used orbital bombardment, turning cities into glass. They contaminated water supplies. They released artificial plagues that targeted specific species. The death toll climbed into the billions. Admiral Chen Wei stood in the command center of the newly constructed Earth Station Sentinel, watching the casualty reports scroll across her screens. Her fleet had grown. Earth had sent 30 more ships, and the galactic community's surviving members had contributed their own vessels. But it was not enough. The Velkari were willing to destroy everything rather than admit defeat. "Admiral, we have an incoming transmission from Dr. Petrov," her communication officer said. Petrov's face appeared on the screen. He looked exhausted with dark circles under his eyes. Behind him, Ambassador Thelaquin worked at a computer terminal. "Admiral, we have found something. Thala and I have been analyzing captured Velkari communications. They are building something massive in their core systems. The power signatures are enormous." "What kind of weapon?" Chen asked, already dreading the answer. "We believe it is a planet cracker, something that can destroy entire worlds from across star systems. If they finish it, they could target Earth directly, or any galactic community world. They could commit genocide from the safety of their own territory." Chen felt ice in her veins. "How long do we have?" "Our best estimate is 3 months before it is operational," Thelaquin said. Her feathers pressed flat against her body in distress. "Admiral Chen, if they complete this weapon, everything we have fought for is lost. They will hold the entire galaxy hostage." The decision came down from Earth Command within 24 hours. The weapon could not be allowed to become operational. Humanity would have to strike at the heart of the Velkari Empire, at Velkar Prime itself. It would require every ship, every soldier, every resource that Earth and its allies could muster. Sergeant Okoye received her new orders while evacuating refugees from a colony world that the Velkari had just bombed. She read them twice, making sure she understood. She was being reassigned to a special operations unit. Their mission: infiltrate Velkar Prime ahead of the main assault and sabotage the superweapon from within. "It is a suicide mission," Theron said quietly. The Avarian had become Okoye's closest friend during the long months of fighting. "They are not expecting you to survive." "I know," Okoye said. She looked up at the stars, knowing that somewhere up there, Earth was preparing for the largest military operation in human history. But someone has to do it. Someone has to make sure that weapon never fires. The preparations took 2 months. Earth's shipyards worked around the clock, building vessels for the final assault. Every nation contributed. Every resource was mobilized. Humanity was betting everything on one desperate strike. The galactic community's surviving members joined them. The Avarians brought their stealth ships. The Kalari contributed their shield technology. The Thraxians, a warrior species that had lost 3 homeworlds to the Velkari, volunteered their entire military for the assault. Species that had never met before the war now trained together, fought together, and prepared to die together. Dr. Petrov worked with scientists from a dozen species, developing countermeasures for the superweapon. They had one chance to disable it before it could be used. The margin for error was 0. Ambassador Thelaquin addressed the Galactic Community Council in what might be her final transmission. 6 months ago, we sent a desperate call into the darkness. We expected nothing. We received everything. The humans came when no one else would. They fought when victory seemed impossible. They taught us that surrender is not inevitable. Now we stand together, human and alien, preparing for the final battle. Whatever happens, we fight not as separate species, but as one community, united against tyranny. High Executor Zarthun watched his own preparations with satisfaction. The superweapon was nearly complete. His intelligence indicated that the humans and their allies were gathering for an assault, but it did not matter. Let them come. His defenses were impenetrable. His fleet was the largest ever assembled, and soon his weapon would be ready. He would target Earth first. He would make the humans watch as their homeworld died, just as they had made him watch his fleets burn. Then he would systematically destroy every world that had dared to resist. The galaxy would remember the Velkari Empire forever. In the darkness between stars, the largest armada in galactic history began to move. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species, all heading toward one destination. At their head flew the ECS Indomitable, Admiral Chen Wei in command. Behind her came the full might of humanity's war machine, supported by every species that still believed freedom was worth fighting for. Sergeant Okoye and her special operations team had already departed, traveling ahead of the fleet in a captured Velkari stealth ship. Their mission was simple to state and impossible to achieve: infiltrate the most heavily defended planet in the Empire and destroy a weapon capable of cracking worlds. The war was about to reach its conclusion. One way or another, it would end at Velkar Prime. The Armada emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Velkar system, and for a moment, even hardened warriors felt awe. Before them hung Velkar Prime, the homeworld of the Empire that had brought the galaxy to its knees. Around it orbited hundreds of defensive stations, thousands of warships, and the massive skeletal structure of the superweapon. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, studying the tactical display. Her fleet numbered 372 ships. The enemy had over 2,000 vessels within immediate response range. The odds were worse than anything humanity had ever faced. "All ships report ready for combat," her tactical officer said. Commander Sarah Kimani had been with Chen since the beginning, and her voice was steady despite the impossible situation they faced. "Send the message," Chen ordered. "Across all frequencies, in every language known to the galaxy, humanity's final ultimatum broadcast. People of the Velkari Empire, we did not come here seeking destruction. We came because you threatened the innocent. We came because you committed genocide. Surrender now, deactivate your weapon, or we will do it for you." High Executor Zarthun laughed when he heard the message. "They truly are insane. Send the entire fleet. Crush them." The Battle of Velkar Prime began with a storm of fire. The Velkari fleet surged forward, confident in their overwhelming numbers. Their energy weapons lit up space like a second sun, but the Allied fleet did not break. They had learned from months of warfare. They had adapted. The Avarian stealth ship struck first, appearing from nowhere to destroy command vessels. The Thraxian heavy cruisers absorbed fire that would have obliterated lighter ships, using their massive shields to protect the human carriers. And the humans themselves fought with the same desperate ferocity they had shown since the war began. Captain Torres, her ship repaired after the first battle at Thessia, led a squadron directly into the thickest fighting. The ECS Defiant danced between enemy fire, her weapons tearing through Velkari shields with concentrated nuclear fury. When a Velkari battleship tried to ram her, Torres diverted all power to engines and slipped past with meters to spare, firing a railgun salvo into the enemy's reactor as she passed. But the numbers were beginning to tell. For every Velkari ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Allied vessels were being overwhelmed, their crews fighting to the last breath before their ships died around them. "We are losing," Commander Kimani said quietly. She did not sugarcoat the situation. That was not her way. Chen looked at the display, calculating angles and probabilities. They needed a miracle. They needed something the Velkari would not expect. Then she saw it. A narrow corridor through the enemy formation, protected by overlapping defensive fields. It would be a death trap, but it led directly to the planet's orbital defense grid. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Execute Protocol Omega." Across the fleet, captains looked at their orders and understood what was being asked of them. Protocol Omega was the final contingency, the option of last resort. It required sacrifice on a scale that made everyone who understood it sick with dread. 20 ships, including the Indomitable, broke formation and accelerated directly toward the planet. They burned their engines beyond safety limits, pushing for every fraction of additional speed. The Velkari focused fire on them, recognizing the threat. The first ship to die was the ECS Magellan. She took a direct hit to the reactor and exploded in a flash of fusion fire. The second was the Avarian vessel Grace of Morning. The third was the Thraxian warship Endless Honor. One by one the ships fell, but those that remained kept coming. On the surface of Velkar Prime, in a ventilation shaft 3 kilometers below the superweapon complex, Sergeant Anna Okoye and her team heard the explosions echoing through the planet's atmosphere. They knew what it meant. The assault had begun. "Move faster," she ordered. "We are running out of time." Her team consisted of 12 humans, 8 Avarians, and 4 Kalari engineers. They had spent 3 weeks infiltrating the planet, hiding in cargo containers, disguising themselves as workers, slowly working their way toward the weapons control center. They had lost 2 team members to security patrols. Every moment they remained undetected was a miracle. Private Chen, who had survived the urban fighting on Praxis 7th, helped the Kalari engineers bypass a security door. "Sergeant, even if we destroy the targeting systems, what about the weapon itself? It could still be used manually." Okoye checked her tactical display. "Then we make sure there is no weapon left to use." "Theron, status on the explosives?" The Avarian scout had rigged charges throughout their infiltration route, using human demolition techniques and Kalari power cells. "Ready, Sergeant? When we detonate, the entire power distribution network will collapse. The weapon's main reactor will overload, and we will be at the center of the explosion," one of the Kalari engineers said quietly. "Yes," Okoye said. She did not lie to her people. "Our mission is to ensure this weapon never fires." We all knew what that meant when we volunteered. Above them, Admiral Chen's flagship was dying. The Indomitable had taken dozens of hits. Half her crew was dead. Her engines were failing. But she had reached her target. The orbital defense grid stretched before her, a network of satellites and weapons platforms that protected the planet from orbital bombardment. "All power to forward ram," Chen ordered. "Collision course with Defense Station Alpha 1. Commander Kimani looked at her admiral. They had served together for 15 years. They had been friends for longer. "It has been an honor, Admiral." "The honor was mine, Sarah," Chen said. Then she opened a channel to all remaining ships. "All vessels, this is Chen. Final order, finish the mission. No matter the cost." The Indomitable struck Defense Station Alpha 1 at 0.27 light speed. The collision released energy equivalent to a massive nuclear weapon. The station disintegrated, taking a chunk of the defense grid with it. Throughout the orbital network, other captains followed Chen's example. Ships that could no longer fight effectively became kinetic weapons. One by one, they sacrificed themselves, each death creating a gap in the defenses. Captain Torres saw what was happening and understood. Her ship was heavily damaged, barely holding together. But she still had one last attack in her. "All hands, this is the captain. Abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. You have 3 minutes." "Captain, we should come with you," her tactical officer protested. "That is an order, Lieutenant. Someone needs to survive to tell the story. Now go." Torres waited until the evacuation was complete. Then she aimed her dying ship at the largest gap in the defense grid. The ECS Defiant had fought in every major battle of the war. She had saved Thessia Prime. She had liberated 6 worlds. Now she would open the path for the liberation forces to reach the surface. "For Earth," Torres whispered. "For all of them." The explosion of the Defiant completed the breach. The planetary defense grid now had a hole large enough for assault shuttles to pass through. But the cost had been terrible. Of the 20 ships that began the charge, only 3 remained operational. 60,000 people had died in less than an hour. On those 3 surviving ships, along with the vessels that had fought holding actions during the charge, the remaining commanders reorganized. They had accomplished the impossible. They had breached the defenses of the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy. But the battle was far from over. Ground forces began their descent, shuttles screaming through the atmosphere toward the weapon complex. Velkari ground batteries fired at them, destroying dozens of shuttles. But enough got through. Enough reached the surface to begin the ground assault. Inside the weapon complex, alarms were screaming. Okoye's team had been discovered. Security forces were converging on their position. The element of surprise was gone. "Detonate the charges now," Okoye ordered. "We go loud." Explosions rippled through the complex. Power conduits exploded. Bulkheads collapsed. Emergency lights flickered and died. In the chaos, Okoye's team rushed toward the main control center, fighting through security forces that had trained for internal defense but never expected a real attack. Theron was shot twice, covering their advance. The Avarian went down, bleeding from wounds that would not heal. "Go," Theron gasped. "Finish it." They left their friend behind and kept moving. Every step forward was bought with blood. Every corridor was a battle. But they were Deathworlders and warriors who had learned from Deathworlders. They did not stop. They could not stop. Above the planet, High Executor Zarthun watched his perfect defenses crumble. He watched humans sacrifice themselves with a determination that defied logic. He watched his numerical superiority mean nothing against an enemy that refused to accept defeat. And for the first time in his life, Zarthun felt something he had never experienced before. He felt fear. Sergeant Ana Okoye's team burst into the superweapons control center with 11 seconds remaining before the weapon fired. The massive chamber was filled with Velkari technicians frantically working at their stations. At the center of the room stood a holographic display showing Earth, beautiful and blue, targeted for destruction. "Stop them!" High Executor Zarthun's voice screamed through the communication system. He was not even on the planet anymore, having fled to his command ship when he realized the battle was lost. But he had left one final order. If he could not win, he would make sure humanity paid the ultimate price. Okoye did not hesitate. She raised her weapon and fired, not at the technicians but at the control panels themselves. Private Chen and the remaining team members did the same, their weapons tearing through delicate equipment. Sparks flew. Screens exploded. The countdown timer flickered. 7 seconds. A Velkari security officer lunged at Okoye. She sidestepped, used his momentum against him, and sent him crashing into a console. Her training from a dozen conflicts on Earth guided her movements. Close-quarters combat was humanity's domain. 5 seconds. One of the Kalari engineers, a being named Trell who had lost his entire family to the Velkari, rushed to the main targeting computer. His fingers flew across alien keys, searching desperately for the manual override. "I cannot stop the firing sequence. The weapon is going to fire." 3 seconds. Okoye looked at the display showing Earth, her home, her family, 8 billion people who had no idea their world was about to end. She thought about her mother in Lagos, her brother in New York, her nephew who was only 6 years old. She thought about every sunset, every ocean, every forest, every person who would die in the next few seconds. "Then change the target," she said. Trell's eyes widened. "What?" "Change the target to Velkar Prime. Make the weapon fire on itself." 1 second. Trell's fingers moved faster than thought. He bypassed security protocols, overrode safety systems, and redirected the weapon's immense power. The targeting computer screamed warnings, trying to prevent firing on the planet it was built to protect. 0. The superweapon fired, but instead of destroying Earth across light years of space, it released its terrible energy into Velkar Prime's own core. The effect was not instantaneous. The planet did not simply explode. Instead, massive earthquakes began. Tectonic plates shifted violently, and volcanic eruptions burst across the surface. The planet killer was killing its own planet. "Evacuate!" Okoye screamed. "Everyone out now." But they all knew it was too late. The facility was collapsing around them. The planet itself was dying. There was no escape. Above the planet, the remaining Allied fleet watched in horror as Velkar Prime began to tear itself apart. Admiral Chen had survived the collision, pulled from the wreckage of the Indomitable by a rescue shuttle. She watched from the medical bay of a Thraxian cruiser, bandaged and broken but alive. "What happened?" she asked. "Did Okoye succeed?" "They succeeded, Admiral," Commander Kimani said. Her voice was hollow. "They stopped the weapon from firing on Earth, but the planet is destroying itself." "Anyone still on the surface?" Chen closed her eyes. Ana Okoye, Private Chen, all those brave souls who had infiltrated the most dangerous place in the galaxy. Heroes who would never come home. "Get our people off that planet. Everyone who can be saved, save them. And contact the Velkari fleet. Tell them we are willing to rescue their people too. Tell them the war can end right now if they stand down." The Velkari military commanders, watching their homeworld die, faced an impossible choice. They could continue fighting, spending lives for a cause that was already lost, or they could surrender to the Deathworlders who had somehow defeated them. High Executor Zarthun tried to order them to fight to the last, but his own officers had finally had enough. They arrested him, stripped him of command, and sent a message to the Allied fleet. "We surrender. Please help our people." The battle stopped. Ships that had been firing at each other minutes before now worked together to evacuate the dying planet. Human shuttles descended alongside Velkari transports, pulling civilians from cities that were being swallowed by the planet's convulsions. In the chaos of the evacuation, deep in the collapsing weapon facility, something remarkable was happening. Sergeant Okoye had led her surviving team members into an emergency shelter built to protect against external attacks, not internal destruction. The shelter systems were failing, but they were holding just long enough. "We are going to die here," Private Chen said. He was not afraid, just stating a fact. Maybe, Okoye said. But we saved Earth, we saved everyone. That counts for something. Through the failing communication system, they heard a voice. This is Rescue Shuttle Thunder searching for survivors. If anyone can hear this, respond with your location. Okoye grabbed the communicator with shaking hands. This is Sergeant Okoye, Special Operations Team Baker. We are in Emergency Shelter 77 Alpha. We have 8 survivors. Can you reach us? There was a pause, then Captain Torres's voice came through. Torres, who everyone thought had died when the Defiant exploded, she had made it to an escape pod, and immediately volunteered for rescue operations. Sergeant, I have your location. Your shelter is collapsing. I can reach you, but my ship only has room for 6. Okoye looked at her team. 8 survivors, 6 seats. The math was simple and terrible. I will stay, Trell said immediately. I am injured. I would slow down the evacuation. Take the others. Trell, no. Okoye started to protest. This is not your choice, human, the Kalari engineer said gently. You have already saved my species. Let me save yours. He looked at Private Chen. Tell my people what we did here. Tell them it mattered. Private Chen saluted, tears running down his face. I will tell them. I promise. One of the Avarian soldiers, a young scout named Dellen, stepped forward. I will stay as well. Someone needs to keep Trail company, and someone needs to make sure you all get out safely. They had no time to argue. The shelter was coming apart. Captain Torres docked her shuttle, and 6 survivors scrambled aboard. As they lifted off, Okoye looked back at Trell and Dellen standing in the failing shelter, waving goodbye. They were smiling. They had completed their mission. They had changed the galaxy. The evacuation of Velkar Prime took 3 days. In the end, over 4 million Velkari civilians were saved by the combined efforts of both fleets. The planet itself died, breaking apart into an asteroid field that would orbit its star for eternity, as a monument to the cost of war. High Executor Zarthun was brought before a war crimes tribunal. He showed no remorse, ranting about Velkari superiority until the end. He was found guilty of genocide and sentenced to life imprisonment. Many wanted him executed, but the galactic community and humanity agreed. They would not become like him. Justice, not vengeance, would guide the peace. The war ended officially 6 weeks after the Battle of Velkar Prime. The Velkari Empire collapsed. Its territory divided among its former subjects who were now free. The galactic community began the long process of rebuilding, with humans working alongside species they had met only months before. Earth was forever changed. No longer isolated, humanity became a full member of the galactic community. The Deathworlders who had answered a desperate call were now the protectors that others looked to in times of danger. Dr. Miklos Petrov and Ambassador Thelaquin worked together to establish the galactic cultural exchange, ensuring that the connections forged in war would be strengthened in peace. Their friendship became a symbol of what the galaxy could become when different species worked together. Sergeant Anna Okoye retired from active service. The war had taken too much from her, left too many scars, both visible and hidden. She dedicated herself to helping refugees, both human and alien, rebuild their lives. She never forgot Trell and Dellen, the heroes who stayed behind so others could live. Private Chen, promoted to sergeant after the war, became a teacher. He traveled the galaxy telling the story of humanity's first war, but more importantly, he told the stories of all the species who fought together. He made sure names like Theron and Dellen and Trell were never forgotten. Captain Sandra Torres survived the war and became Admiral Torres, taking over Admiral Chen's position when Chen retired. She oversaw the integration of human and galactic community military forces, creating a defense network that would ensure no single empire could threaten the galaxy again. 5 years after the war, a monument was built on Thessia Prime. It stood at the spot where the first human shuttles had landed, where Sergeant Okoye had first met Ambassador Thelaquin. The monument listed every name, human and alien, who had died in the war. Millions of names carved in stone that would last for millennia. At the base of the monument was a simple inscription in Galactic Standard and English. They heard the call. They came when others would not. They fought when victory seemed impossible. They sacrificed so that others might live. Remember them. Honor them. Let their example guide us toward a better future. On Earth, in a small park in Lagos, another monument stood. This one showed a human soldier, and an Avarian civilian standing together looking up at the stars. Children played around it every day, human and alien children who had grown up in a galaxy where different species were neighbors, friends, and family.